Legally in Love, written and narrated by C. Taylor, edited to meet YouTube guidelines. To purchase the unedited book, please click the link in the description. Chapter 7b. From Emma's perspective. She watched as he left. The sight made her blush and inspired what she was pretty sure was a very embarrassing smile on her face. She had instinctively pulled the covers to conceal herself. It wasn't logical, but then 90% of the last 24 hours hadn't been. Not her usual controlled, carefully planned, calculated, and structured life she'd been working on since the first time she almost died at 13. In 24 hours, all her plans of merely slipping away with as little impact on the one she cared about was completely torn apart. She'd never been afraid of her life ending, just the pain it would cause the one she'd leave behind. Now John, whether he knew it or not, made her want to live a long, long life with him, exploring love and intimacy and family and everything. The realization made her shiver and her brain shut down, unbelievably terrified of wanting to live. What kind of weirdo is more afraid of living than her life ending? She would have to research that. Maybe if she could find any conclusions on it, it could be her next paper. Her subject pool would need to be people who had terminal illnesses that went into spontaneous remission. Her own numerous near-end experience, if her specialist comments could be trusted, were quite unique. Her body, quote, seemed to be continually trying to destroy itself, unquote, was how they described it, and they still had no idea why. After being told that at 15 years old, she started creating a world where she was hardly noticed. She made another mental note. The subject illnesses would have to be long-term issues prior to the remission. The patient pool she would need to use most certainly would be medically tested to confirm both the long-term illness and the remission. To her knowledge, no study of the psychological impact had been done. She would need to search through studies for anything similar. She knew her memory well enough to know if she didn't write this down, she would never remember. She rolled to his bedside table and opened the drawer. She found a pen, but nothing to write on. As she searched, she slowly realized there weren't any protections inside, just the aid he'd been using with her. That seemed odd. Didn't guys usually have their protection there in case they needed it? That's when she realized he hadn't used any protection in all the times they'd been together, which at this point had been several. She was very protected against pregnancy due to her health issues, but John was hardly a monk. She'd seen firsthand at least once how women melted with him. If he hadn't used protection with them, she could have just allowed who knows what kind of infection into her body. This may have been her first time, but she was hardly uneducated about the risks of intimacy. Why hadn't she even asked? This was bad. This was so bad. She made the note on her hand since there wasn't anything else she could use and quickly returned the pen to the drawer. She would have to know what to tell her doctor. It could have an unimaginable impact on her body. This meant she would have to have a very awkward and uncomfortable conversation with John when he returned. Oh, as if on cue, she heard him coming up the stairs. She steadied herself and tried to figure out a way to broach the subject. Was there a way to have this conversation without embarrassing herself or him? She saw him at the top of the stairs carrying a tray of something that smelled incredible, still bare and stunning. She felt her head start to spin again, forget even trying to be delicate. She was going to need to be direct and brutal if she even had a chance of having this conversation before she attacked him again. He came in the room smiling, which fell the second he saw her face. "What's wrong?" he asked in a rush as he put the tray down at the foot of the bed and moved to her. From John's perspective, "There's no protection in your side table," was all she said, like it explained everything. It took him a minute, but it did actually give him enough information to suspect why she was looking like she was about to cry. "That's right, because I never brought a woman here and was never going to," he said slowly so she would truly understand what he was saying. "I keep them in my car and wallet if I need them." "But the other aid is here," she asked. "I moved it here after I carried you to the couch." She broke eye contact and looked down, eventually slowly nodding her head that she understood, but he knew she still didn't fully understand what he was trying to tell her. He could also tell she was very uncomfortable with the conversation and admired her for having it. She took a deep breath and didn't look up at him when she asked, "When was the last time you were tested for infections?" He reached for her, stroked her hair, and gently cupped her face. He pulled gently so she would look at him again, waited until their eyes met. "3 months ago, but I haven't been intimate with anyone in almost a year, and I've never done it without protection before you." He felt her relax and take a deep breath like she'd been holding it for a while. Oh, crap, thank heaven, she breathed. He couldn't help his smirk. He had never heard her swear in all the time he'd known her, but in the last few hours he found she actually had quite an advanced vocabulary on the subject, especially at the peak of intimacy. That was going to be a very awkward conversation with my specialist I was not looking forward to, she giggled. He pulled her in to kiss her. Oh, big mistake. His blood started pounding again and body started making demands before he'd fed her. Edited for content. He fumbled with the fork, and after several failed attempts to spear some scrambled eggs, he resorted to using a spoon. Edited. Take a bite. She obeyed, and he took one himself. He repeated back and forth until they could no longer focus and dropped the spoon. Edited. He checked the tray and found it was empty. Thank heavens he'd finished the meal. She would have plenty to work off for the next few hours. Edited for content. By the time he came to again, she was gently tracing a finger along his collarbone and chest. Not enticing this time. It felt like she was just exploring him. He was good with whatever she wanted as long as she stayed with him. He stroked her hair and kissed her head. You okay? He'd asked for about the millionth time, concerned he'd been too hard with her, too fast, too anything that made her uncomfortable. She'd always nodded her head, and he'd start breathing again. This time, no nod. He stilled. So did her hand at his chest. Way too many moments later, she finally spoke. My doctors have told me more than once I wouldn't survive a pregnancy. It was barely more than a whisper. His arms wrapped around her and held her close. One hand went to her head and cradled her there. I know, he admitted softly down to her. She pushed up to see his eyes. You do? How? Realization dawned, and they said Christian at the same time. He smiled. He let me know last year during our trial. I had no idea why he did at the time. Apparently, he knew before either of us was willing to admit to ourselves we wanted to be together. She looked like she was about to object, then paused and just nodded her head. Are you okay with that? Again, the question was tentative and soft. He pulled her in to kiss her deeply, but more gentle than the usual intense burning ones. Edited. He broke the kiss, held her face to keep eye contact. I just want you. If I have you, I'm okay. We have Luke, and if you want more, we can explore more adoptions. I'm not willing to take any risks in losing you ever again. She smiled finally and brushed her nose with his. That simple, innocent move quickly became one of his favorite things ever. I know exactly how you feel. He pulled her in, brushed her nose with his again before kissing her. After enjoying the kiss for several minutes, her hands took his and guided them to the headboard again. What was she up to now? Her lips left his and went to his neck, to the place she already knew he loved, causing the blood to pound. Emma, what are you doing this time? He asked, less nervous than the first time she'd taken the lead, but still unfamiliar with it. Before her, he'd always been the one in control. She closed his hands around the slats again and slowly dragged her hands down his arms to his chest, and she took his earlobe in her teeth, causing him to suck in a sudden breath. Something I've wanted to try, was all she said as her mouth traveled along his jawbone and down his neck to his chest. She continued to travel lower to his stomach, dipped her tongue in the dip at his belly, and even lower. He tensed, suddenly knowing what she intended. She'd shown clearly untried but natural talent so far, but this was more of an advanced situation that could easily turn problematic for him. Had he even given her his safe word? She must have felt him tense because she instantly stopped. Her eyes popped up to look at him. My safe word is rabbit. Her head raised. Sorry, am I making you nervous? Just unsure how much research you've done with this particular aspect of human intimacy. His words were clinical and in a rush. He was really nervous. She stilled. Her smile faltered slightly. He got a bad feeling. This is one aspect I have some practical experience, she admitted slowly. He stilled. Something in him went cold. Who had she done this with? He wanted his name, would hunt him down and make him pay. She was his, all his. This admission caused him to feel illogically angry that he had to share this with someone else. It was with a cucumber. His lungs filled with air, his world righted again. She was his, all his. Semi-wild college night? He asked, teasing. She didn't laugh. When I was taken, they had me do things to cucumbers and carrots. It wasn't until I studied it that I realized what they were training me to do. Oh, his stomach sickened. He knew she was rescued before anything permanent happened, but that was about all he knew about the experience. Keep my lips over my teeth. They had me use my hands in different strokes and tempos. I can't guarantee I'll be any good at it, but I promise you are safe. She still didn't move, waited until he gave her the go-ahead. Emma, you don't have to, he offered, but edited. I could put my arms across you. I mean, I'll need my hands for some of it, but when you did it, it helped me feel really secure. I trust you. I just don't want you to do anything you're not comfortable doing. He didn't like the uncertainty he was seeing in her for the first time since the night before. Edited. I mostly feel a lot of curiosity about it. Edited. That sounded reasonable. The more she described what she wanted to try, the louder the blood sounded in his ears and his head started spinning again. Letting her play was quickly becoming yet another one of his favorite things about her. He tried to give her the go-ahead, but didn't even recognize the strangled cry that came out of his mouth. She smiled for the first time since he'd stopped her and tilted her head in confusion. He finally just nodded and was rewarded with an even bigger smile right before she edited. She purred and snuggled into his chest. Tentatively, he allowed himself to breathe again. Are you okay? Amazing, she said, surer and louder than he would have ever expected. How do you feel about edited? She asked, softer and less sure. The question made his stomach clench, and he nearly growled in a primal caveman sort of way. I find it an extreme turn on. He could feel her smile against his chest. Her hands slid on either side of him and squeezed. He hugged her back.